I thought I was being a generous mother. I had no idea that one text message would cost my son everything. But that same message ended up saving my life. 2 weeks ago, I was sitting in my home office, surrounded by photos of happier times. Pictures of my late husband Robert, of William's graduation, of family holidays when we actually felt like, well, a family. The afternoon sunlight was streaming through my window, and I was feeling particularly proud of myself. You see, I had just completed something I'd been working on for months, something that was supposed to be the surprise of a lifetime for my son William and his wife Jessica. I had just transferred the final $50,000 to complete the purchase of their dream home. That's right, $50,000. The final payment in what had been a 6-month process of me quietly, secretly, buying them a house. Let me paint the picture for you. This wasn't just any house. This was a 4-bedroom colonial in the best school district, with a wraparound porch and a backyard perfect for the grandchildren. I was so excited to spoil. I'd paid the down payment, covered the closing costs, and had been making the mortgage payments for months, all while they thought they were just house hunting. My plan was beautiful in its simplicity. When they returned from our family cruise, yes, our family cruise that I had also paid for, I was going to hand William the deed with a big red bow and say, "Surprise, welcome home." I'm 58 years old, and after my husband died 7 years ago, I threw myself into real estate investing. I built a portfolio that most people would envy. But what good is wealth if you can't share it with the people you love most? William is my only child, my everything. Sure, he'd always been a little entitled, always expecting things to work out for him. But I told myself that was just ambition, just confidence. His father and I had worked so hard to give him opportunities we never had. And Jessica? Well, Jessica was pregnant with my first grandchild. I was going to be a grandmother, even though she'd always been distant with me, even though she came from money and sometimes made me feel like I wasn't quite good enough. I figured a baby would bring us all closer together. So there I was, literally glowing with anticipation, when my phone buzzed. The text was from William. I remember my heart doing this little flutter of excitement, thinking maybe he was texting about last-minute cruise details or thanking me for something. Instead, I read these words. "Mom, change of plans for the family cruise next week. You won't be joining us. Jessica prefers to keep it just family, her parents, siblings, us. Hope you understand." I stared at my phone screen until the words blurred. I read it again, then again. Jessica prefers to keep it just family. Just family? What was I then? I gave birth to William. I raised him. I buried his father and held him while he cried. I paid for his education, helped him through every crisis, celebrated every success. But somehow I wasn't family enough for a cruise that I had paid for. My hands started shaking. I tried calling William immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. That cheerful recording, "Hi, you've reached William. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." The same voice that used to call me the best mom in the world. But he didn't get back to me. Now I know what you're thinking. Maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe there was a good explanation. Maybe the cruise ship had capacity issues, or there was some family emergency with Jessica's side. So I did what any concerned mother would do. I checked social media. What I found made my blood run cold. Jessica had posted photos from their pre-cruise shopping trip. There she was, laughing with her parents, her sister, her brother, all going on our family cruise. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was seeing William's college roommate Mike in one of the photos. And Sarah, Jessica's best friend from work, and Jessica's cousin Tyler, who I'd met exactly twice. Let me get this straight. There was room for college roommates and work friends and twice-met cousins, but not for William's mother? I kept scrolling, my heart pounding harder with each post. And then I saw it, a photo of William and Jessica at dinner, both grinning, with a caption that made me feel physically sick. "So excited for our adults-only family getaway." Sometimes you just need a vacation with people who actually matter. People who actually matter. That's when the memories started flooding back. All those times I'd made excuses for William's behavior. All those moments when I'd rationalized Jessica's coldness. Like last Christmas, When Jessica opened the diamond necklace I'd spent weeks picking out, looked at it for exactly 3 seconds, and said, "Oh, how traditional." Then she spent the rest of the evening showing off the modern art piece her parents had given her, which, by the way, looked like something a toddler made with finger paints. Or William's birthday 6 months ago, when I threw him a surprise party at my house. Jessica spent the entire evening on her phone, posting stories about how some people try too hard and how authentic relationships don't need grand gestures. I remembered the baby shower I'd offered to host, only to be told they'd already planned something more intimate with Jessica's side. I found out later from a mutual friend that it had 40 people. But the worst memory? The day William told me Jessica was pregnant. I was so excited, I started crying happy tears and reached out to hug him. He actually stepped back and said, "Mom, don't be so dramatic." Jessica thinks emotional reactions make people uncomfortable. I should have seen the signs. I should have realized that every boundary Jessica set was designed to push me further away from my own son. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what I found next. I was about to close my laptop, resign myself to a lonely week while my family vacationed without me, when I decided to check Jessica's Instagram one more time. She had posted a new story, a series of Instagram stories actually, and they were public. The first one was a photo of her packing, with text overlay that read, "Finally, a vacation without the overbearing Mill." My heart stopped. The second story showed her and William laughing, with the caption, "My husband is finally learning to set boundaries with toxic people." Toxic people? She was calling me toxic, me, the woman who had just spent $50,000 on their house. But the third story was the one that destroyed me completely. It was a photo of a cruise brochure with text that made me nauseous. Some people think they can buy love, but pathetic is still pathetic, no matter how much money you throw around. I took screenshots with shaking fingers because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My friends could see these. My neighbors could see these. The entire world could see my daughter-in-law calling me pathetic, desperate, someone who tries to buy love. And the comments, the comments were worse. People I'd never met, agreeing with her, laughing at me, talking about their own crazy mother-in-laws and how Jessica was so brave for standing up to family manipulation. But the comment that broke me came from someone I recognized, William's cousin Lisa, someone I'd considered family. She had written, "About time. We've all been watching this train wreck for years. Good for you, Jess." They'd all been watching. They'd all been talking about me behind my back. For years. I sat there in my office, surrounded by photos of people who apparently saw me as nothing more than a walking ATM with boundary issues. The late afternoon sun was still streaming through my windows, but everything felt dark. The typing sound stopped. "Trisha, honey, didn't you just finish paying for that last week?" "I did. And now I want to sell it. What's the current market value?" What Elena told me next made me smile for the first time since receiving that text. The house had already appreciated $30,000 since I'd bought it 6 months ago. The market was hot, inventory was low, and houses in that neighborhood were selling above asking price within days. "If you're serious about this," Elena said, "I can have it listed by tomorrow and sold by the weekend." "I'm serious," I told her. "Dead serious." While William and Jessica were posting sunset photos from the cruise ship, yes, I was still getting tagged in their social media despite being banned from the actual vacation. I was executing a plan that would have made my late husband proud. First, I stopped all the automatic payments. The mortgage payment that came out of my account every month? Canceled. The homeowner's insurance I'd been paying? Canceled. The utility setup fees I'd covered? All canceled. Then I started gathering documentation. Screenshots of every cruel social media post, copies of William's dismissive text message, bank records showing every payment I'd made toward their house, their car, their credit cards over the years. But it was while I was organizing all these papers that I made a discovery that changed everything. Buried in a stack of mortgage paperwork was William's credit report from when we'd first started the house buying process. He'd left it at my house months ago, and I'd filed it away without really looking at it closely. Now, as I studied it with my businesswoman's eye instead of my mother's heart, I felt sick to my stomach. William and Jessica weren't just financially irresponsible, they were drowning. Maxed out credit cards totaling $47,000, a car loan for $38,000 on a luxury SUV they couldn't afford. Personal loans, store credit cards, even a payday loan from 6 months ago. Their total debt, just over $80,000. And that was on top of expecting me to cover their housing costs. Suddenly, everything made sense. Jessica's desperation to keep me close enough to pay for things but far enough away to avoid genuine relationship. William's increasing requests for loans that were never repaid. The expensive cruise that I now realized was probably funded entirely by credit cards. They weren't just ungrateful, they were financially parasitic. And they'd been planning to use me as their personal ATM for years to come. The fake pregnancy test I'd glimpsed in Jessica's purse during their last visit, suddenly that made sense too. Nothing motivates a grandmother to open her wallet quite like an impending grandchild. Armed with this new information, I moved with surgical precision. Elena listed the house on Wednesday morning. By Wednesday evening, we had 3 showing requests. By Thursday afternoon, we had 2 offers, both above asking price. I also did something that felt incredibly empowering. I changed the locks. Since I was the legal owner and the house was vacant, they'd been staying in their apartment until after the cruise to make the surprise more dramatic. I had every right to secure my property. Then I sat down and wrote a letter. Not an angry rant, not an emotional plea, but a clear, businesslike explanation of my actions. I wanted there to be no confusion about why this was happening. The letter started simply. William, when you decided I wasn't family enough to join a cruise I paid for, I realized you were right. Family wouldn't treat each other the way you've treated me. So I'm responding not as your mother, but as a businesswoman who's been taken advantage of for too long. On Friday morning, Elena called with news that made me believe in karma again. Trisha, you're not going to believe this, but I think I found the perfect buyers for your house. She described a young couple, Maria and James, who reminded me painfully of William and Jessica from their early days, when they were still grateful and hopeful, instead of entitled and cruel. Maria was pregnant with their first child. James had just gotten promoted at his engineering firm, and they'd been looking for their dream home for months. They're pre-approved for the full asking price, Elena said. But here's the beautiful part. They're offering $25,000 over asking, all cash, because Maria fell in love with the nursery and wants to be moved in before the baby comes. I thought about Jessica's fake pregnancy, her calculated manipulation, her public cruelty. Then I thought about this young couple, genuinely excited about starting their family in a home they'd earned. Elena, I said, tell them yes, and tell them they can close the day after the cruise ends. Trisha. Elena paused. Are you sure about the timing? That's gonna be dramatic, I finished. Elena, my dear, that's exactly the point. As I sat in my office that Friday evening, watching William's latest Instagram story about their amazing family bonding time, I realized something profound. This wasn't just about the cruise anymore. This wasn't even just about the house. This was about 32 years of gradually escalating boundary violations. This was about every time I'd made excuses for William's selfishness. Every time I'd convinced myself that Jessica would warm up to me eventually. Every time I'd thrown money at a problem instead of addressing the real issue. William hadn't become entitled overnight. I'd trained him to be this way, one unchallenged boundary violation at a time. And Jessica hadn't suddenly decided to hate me. She'd been systematically isolating me from my son from day one, and I'd been too desperate to keep the peace to fight back. But desperate mothers make poor decisions. Successful businesswomen make strategic ones. So while William and Jessica spent their last day on the cruise ship, probably planning how they'd graciously accept their new house and planning ways to get me to cover their $80,000 in debt, I was signing closing papers. The house they thought was theirs was being transferred to a lovely young couple who actually appreciated the gift they were receiving. The locks they expected to open with their keys had been changed, and the mother they thought would always be there to clean up their messes was about to become someone they'd never dealt with before. But here's what they didn't know yet, and what you'll find out next. While I was selling their house, I was also making another discovery. Something about Jessica that made her fake pregnancy look like child's play. Something that would completely shatter William's world in a way that had nothing to do with real estate. What did I find? Well, let's just say that when you spend years manipulating people, you leave a trail. And when that trail leads to the truth has a way of setting everyone free, whether they want to be free or not. It was Tuesday afternoon, exactly 1 week after that devastating text message, when I heard the car pull into my driveway. I was in my living room, calmly reading a book when I saw William's SUV, the one with the $38,000 loan I'd discovered, come to a screeching halt outside my house. Through my window, I watched William and Jessica climb out, both still sporting those cruise tans that had been plastered all over social media for the past week. They were wheeling their expensive luggage, probably purchased with credit cards, and William had this excited bounce in his step. He was happy. Actually happy. This man who had excluded me from a family vacation and allowed his wife to publicly humiliate me was bouncing with joy as he approached my door. The doorbell rang, and I took a deep breath. I'd been preparing for this moment for 7 days. I opened the door with a calm smile. "Mom!" William rushed forward to hug me as if nothing had happened. "We're back, and we have the most amazing news to share. But first, we want to go check out the house. Jessica has so many ideas for decorating the nursery." Jessica stood behind him, one hand protectively placed over her still flat stomach, giving me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you again for everything, Tricia. We know how much this house means to you." Did you catch that? We know how much this house means to you. Not to them. To me, as if I was the one getting something out of buying them a house. "Actually," I said, still smiling, "why don't you both come in? We need to talk before you go anywhere." They settled into my living room, William practically vibrating with excitement, Jessica checking her phone and no doubt planning her next social media post about her generous but pathetic mother-in-law. "Before we discuss anything else," I said, placing a manila folder on the coffee table between us, "I have something to show you." William glanced at the folder. "Mom, can this wait? We're really excited to see the house. Jessica's been looking at baby furniture online the whole flight home." "I'm sure she has," I replied. "But no, William, this can't wait, because there is no house." The silence that followed was deafening. William's smile slowly faded as Jessica's head snapped up from her phone. "What do you mean, there's no house?" Jessica's voice was sharp now, that fake sweetness completely gone. I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. "I mean, I sold it last Friday. The closing was yesterday, while you were flying home." William's face went through several emotions in rapid succession: confusion, disbelief, then something that looked like panic. "You sold our house? But Mom, you can't just..." "I can't just what?" I interrupted. "Sell my own property? Because that's what it was, William. My property, my name on the deed, my money for the down payment, my credit backing the mortgage, my house." Jessica stood up so abruptly she knocked over the throw pillow behind her. "This is insane. You can't do this to us. We have a baby coming." And that's when I smiled. Really smiled. Because Jessica had just walked directly into the trap I'd been setting for a week. "Ah, yes," I said, pulling out another document from my folder. "The baby. Let's talk about that, shall we? You see, Jessica, while you two were enjoying your cruise, the one I wasn't family enough to join, I had some time to do research. And when you spend 7 days with nothing but time and internet access, you can discover some very interesting things." I pulled out a printed page and placed it on the table. It was a screenshot from a pregnancy forum from 18 months ago, with Jessica's distinctive username asking about how to fake a pregnancy test for a prank. Jessica's face went white. "But that's not all," I continued, pulling out more papers. "I also found your posts in several other forums, asking about fake ultrasound images, how long you can fake a pregnancy before showing, and, my personal favorite, how to gradually miscarry to end a fake pregnancy without suspicion." William was staring at Jessica with growing horror. "Jess? What is she talking about?" But Jessica was in full attack mode now. You went through my private internet history? That's a complete violation of privacy. And those posts they were research for a story I was writing. A story? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that also what you were doing when you bought that fake pregnancy belly from Amazon? The one that's currently hidden in the back of your closet at your apartment? The room went dead silent. Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. How do you? She started, then caught herself. Know about it? I finished. Because your apartment manager, Mrs. Rodriguez, is a lovely woman who's been dealing with your late rent payments for months. When I stopped by yesterday to collect the spare key you'd given me for emergencies, she mentioned how strange it was that you'd been getting so many packages lately for someone who was supposed to be moving out. William was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. Jessica, please tell me this isn't true. Please tell me you're actually pregnant. That's when Jessica completely lost it. All the careful manipulation, all the calculated sweetness, just evaporated in an explosion of pure rage. Fine, she screamed. Fine, you want the truth? I'm not pregnant. I've never been pregnant, and thank God for that, because the last thing I'd want is to be tied to this pathetic family forever. William physically recoiled like she'd slapped him. Jessica. But she was on a roll now, all her careful masks finally off. Do you have any idea how exhausting it's been pretending to care about your clingy, desperate mother, smiling while she throws money at us like that's going to make us love her? She's pathetic, William. Absolutely pathetic. She bought us a house, William whispered. No, she bought herself a house. Jessica shot back. She bought herself the illusion that we needed her, that we'd keep her around out of gratitude. Well, guess what, Tricia? We never needed you. We never wanted you around. And that fake baby? That was just to squeeze more money out of you before we cut you off completely. The room fell silent, except for Jessica's heavy breathing. William was staring at her like he was seeing a complete stranger. We? He finally asked. Jessica, did you just say we? That's when Jessica realized she'd gone too far. But it was too late. The truth was out, and there was no taking it back. William knew, I said quietly. Didn't you, son? William's face crumpled. Mom. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Jessica said we just needed to secure some financial stability, and then we'd tell you the truth after we were settled in the house. So you both planned to fake my grandchild's existence, just to get money from me? It wasn't like that. William protested, but his voice lacked any conviction. I pulled out another document. Actually, it was exactly like that. This is Jessica's credit card statement from 6 months ago, the one where she purchased fake ultrasound images online. And this, I placed another paper down, is a text conversation between you and Jessica where she tells you exactly how to play up the grandfather angle to get me to pay for more things. William couldn't even look at me anymore. But I wasn't done. And Jessica, since we're being honest now, let's talk about your wealthy family. You know, the ones who supposedly couldn't make room for me on the cruise ship. Jessica's eyes went wide with panic. Imagine my surprise when I called your parents' house to ask about coordinating Christmas gifts this year, only to have your father tell me they haven't spoken to you in 3 years. Something about you stealing money from your grandmother's purse at the last family gathering you attended. The mask was completely gone now. Jessica looked like a cornered animal. And that cruise you just came back from? The one that was supposedly paid for by your well-off family? That was funded entirely by cash advances from credit cards. Cards that are now maxed out, adding another $8,000 to your already crushing debt. I stood up and walked to my desk, pulling out one final envelope. William, I want you to have this. He opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a check for $5,000, their original security deposit for the house they'd been renting, and a letter. Read it out loud, I told him. William's voice cracked as he read, This is for the grandchild that was never real, and the son I apparently never really had. You wanted to exclude me from your family, so I'm granting your wish. Consider this my resignation from being your personal ATM. Good luck with your $80,000 in debt. Jessica exploded again. You can't do this to us. We have nowhere to go. We have no money. You have each other, I replied calmly. Isn't that what you wanted? Just family? William was crying now. "Mom, please, I know we messed up, but you're still my mother. I still love you." "Do you?" I asked. "Because love isn't just words, William. Love is respect. Love is consideration. Love is honesty. When was the last time you showed me any of those things?" He couldn't answer. "I raised you to be better than this," I continued. "I gave you every opportunity, every advantage, every benefit of the doubt. And you repaid that by lying to me, stealing from me, and allowing your wife to publicly humiliate me." As I watched them processing the reality of their situation, no house, no money, no family safety net, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. For 32 years, I'd been William's mother first and Trisha Brown's second. I'd made his problems my problems, his needs my priority, his happiness my responsibility. But standing there, watching him face the consequences of his choices for the first time in his adult life, I realized something profound. I wasn't losing a son. I was freeing myself from people who had only ever seen me as a resource to be exploited. "What are we supposed to do now?" Jessica demanded, as if I somehow owed her an answer. "What every other adult does," I replied. "Figure it out yourselves." They left that day with their suitcases and their debt and their lies, and for the first time in years, my house felt peaceful. 3 days after, I got a phone call that would change my life in ways I never expected. It was Elena, my real estate agent, and her voice had an excitement I rarely heard from someone who deals with property sales every day. "Trisha," she said, "I need to tell you something. I've been documenting everything that happened with your son and daughter-in-law, not for gossip, for something much more important." I was confused. "Documenting what exactly?" "Every conversation we had, every legal step you took, every boundary you set. Trisha, my own mother went through something very similar with my brother 10 years ago. She was so generous, so loving, and he took advantage of it until she had nothing left, financially or emotionally." Elena's voice cracked slightly. She never recovered from it. She died thinking she was a bad mother because she finally said no. But watching you handle this situation, with dignity, with legal precision, with self-respect, I realized my mother wasn't the problem. She was the victim. I sat down, not sure where this conversation was heading. "I want to help you write your story," Elena continued. "Not for revenge, not for drama, but to help other parents who are going through this. Because, Trisha, what you experienced isn't rare. It's an epidemic, and most people suffer in silence." That conversation led to something I never could have imagined. Elena, who had a background in digital marketing before real estate, helped me create a blog called Boundaries and Love, A Mother's Journey to Self-Respect. I was terrified to publish that first post. Who was I to give advice? What if people thought I was just a bitter mother trying to justify abandoning her son? But the response was overwhelming. Within 48 hours, I had received over 200 comments from parents sharing their own stories of financial and emotional manipulation by adult children. Messages from mothers crying as they read my story because it was their story too. Fathers who had enabled entitled behavior for years and didn't know how to stop. The post was shared thousands of times. Other bloggers reached out asking to interview me. Suddenly, I found myself accidentally becoming an advocate for something I'd never even realized was a widespread problem. While I was learning to navigate this unexpected new purpose, the consequences of William and Jessica's actions were playing out exactly as you'd expect. Jessica, faced with the reality of their debt and William's inability to support her lifestyle, lasted exactly 6 weeks before packing her bags and moving back in with her parents. The same parents she'd claimed were wealthy and supportive, but who had actually cut her off years earlier for stealing from family members. Her parents took her back, but with conditions that sounded remarkably familiar. No access to credit cards, no unsupervised access to their finances, and mandatory therapy for her manipulative behavior. William, meanwhile, was facing reality for the first time in his adult life. With no safety net, no mother to bail him out, and no wife to support his delusions, he was forced to take a second job delivering food at night to cover their massive debt payments. I know this because our mutual friends kept me updated, though I never asked. They seemed to think I wanted to hear about his suffering, but honestly, it just made me sad. This was my son, struggling with consequences I could have prevented by simply writing another check. But I'd learned the difference between love and enabling, and love sometimes means letting people face the results of their choices. 2 months after the house sale, I received an envelope in my mailbox that made me cry happy tears for the first time in months. Inside were photos from Maria and James, the young couple who had bought William's house. Pictures of their baby's nursery. The room that was supposed to be for my fake grandchild, now filled with genuine love and anticipation. There was a handwritten note from Maria. "Dear Mrs. Brown, we wanted you to know that our daughter took her first steps in the living room of this beautiful home. We think about your generosity every day and how you made our dreams possible. We hope you know that your sacrifice created something beautiful." My sacrifice? They thought I had sacrificed something for them. But the truth was, selling that house had been the most liberating decision I'd made in years. I wrote back to them, including photos of myself as a young mother with William, explaining that watching their family grow in that home brought me more joy than any fake gratitude from entitled adults ever could. As my blog grew, and I connected with hundreds of parents navigating similar situations, I realized I needed to make some changes in my own life too. I sold my large family home, the one filled with memories of a son who had taken my generosity for granted, and moved into a beautiful, smaller condo downtown. A place that was entirely mine, designed for my happiness rather than for hosting family members who saw me as a resource rather than a person. I started traveling again, something I'd stopped doing because William always made me feel guilty for abandoning him when he needed support. I volunteered with organizations helping elderly people avoid financial scams and family exploitation. I discovered that my story had given me not just a voice, but a purpose. My vision board, hung prominently in my new home office, was filled with travel destinations I wanted to visit, causes I wanted to support, and dreams I wanted to pursue. And yes, in the corner, there was still a small photo of William as a child, because the love never goes away. It just learns to coexist with self-respect. 6 months to the day after I sold the house, my doorbell rang on a Tuesday evening. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment my heart raced with the old anxiety that had become my constant companion during the worst of the family crisis. I looked through the peephole and saw William standing on my doorstep. But this wasn't the William who had left my house 6 months earlier. This man looked tired, thinner, but somehow more present, real. I opened the door cautiously. "William." "Hi, Mom." His voice was different too, quieter. "I was wondering if I could talk to you for a few minutes. Not about money," he added quickly, seeing my expression. About everything else." I let him in, and we sat in my new living room, smaller, but filled with things that brought me joy rather than obligations I felt I had to meet. "I've been in therapy," he began, and I could see how difficult this conversation was for him. "Jessica's gone. She left 2 months ago, and honestly, I'm relieved." He took a shaky breath. "I've been working 2 jobs, paying off our debt. It'll take me years, but I'm doing it myself. And in therapy, I've been talking about how I treated you, how I let her treat you." I waited, saying nothing. "I don't expect forgiveness," he continued. "I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I understand now what I did, what we did, and I'm sorry, really, truly sorry." I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, who had hurt me so deeply, who was now sitting in my living room taking responsibility for his actions without asking for anything in return, and I felt something I hadn't expected: hope. "I'm not ready to forgive you," I told him honestly. "And I'm not ready to trust you. But I'm willing to start small. Maybe coffee once a month. Maybe a phone call now and then. If you can prove that this change is real." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "That's more than I deserve." "It's not about what you deserve," I replied. "It's about what I'm willing to give. And William, that's going to be very different from what I gave before." We started meeting for coffee once a month, sometimes twice if he was doing well. He showed me his therapy homework, his budget spreadsheets, his plan for paying off the debt. He never once asked for help, though I could see how much he was struggling. And slowly, very slowly, I began to see glimpses of the son I'd raised, not the entitled man-child Jessica had encouraged him to become, but the thoughtful, responsible person I'd always believed he could be. As William worked on rebuilding himself, I was building something too. A community of parents who had learned the difference between love and enabling. My blog had evolved into a support network. I was video calling with parents across the country, helping them navigate their own boundary-setting journeys. I'd become an accidental expert in something I'd never wanted to learn about: family financial abuse and recovery. Last week, I had a video call with a young mother named Sarah, whose adult daughter had been stealing from her for years. As I listened to her story, so similar to mine, yet unique in its own painful details, I realized that my experience with William and Jessica had given me something unexpected. Not just healing, but purpose. Not just self-respect, but the ability to help others find theirs. As I sit here in my beautiful new condo looking at my vision board filled with dreams I'm actually pursuing now, I want to share what I've learned from this journey. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their choices. When we constantly rescue people from their mistakes, we rob them of the opportunity to grow, to learn, to become better versions of themselves. William needed to lose everything: the house, the financial safety net, the enabling wife, the mother who would fix his problems, to finally find himself. And I needed to stop being his ATM to remember that I was a person worthy of respect, not just someone to be used when convenient. The house I bought him? It's filled with a loving family who appreciates what they have. The money I spent on him over the years? It taught me the difference between generosity and enabling. The relationship I thought I'd lost? It's being rebuilt on a foundation of mutual respect instead of obligation and guilt. Our monthly coffee meetings aren't filled with requests for money or complaints about his problems. They're filled with updates about his therapy, his progress, his slowly improving life. Sometimes he asks my advice, not about money, but about decisions he's learning to make for himself. And sometimes, just sometimes, I see flashes of the man I always knew he could become. This story isn't just about a cruise or a house or even a fake pregnancy. It's about learning to value yourself enough to demand the respect you deserve, even from the people you love most. If my story resonates with you, if you're dealing with similar family dynamics, know this: setting boundaries isn't cruel. Demanding respect isn't selfish. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give someone is to let them discover what they're truly capable of when they can't rely on you to solve their problems. William is rebuilding his life, one honest decision at a time. I'm building mine around relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial dependency. And both of us are better for it. To everyone watching this, remember, you deserve respect, not just from strangers, but from the people you love most. Don't be afraid to demand it. If this story helped you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to my channel for more stories about boundaries, self-respect, and the sometimes difficult journey of loving people while loving yourself too. And remember, sometimes losing everything is exactly what we need to find what really matters. Thank you for following my journey. Now go create boundaries that honor both your love for others and your respect for yourself.